Hi guys, Cosmos here again. Today I'm going to be making or showing you a tutorial on the Calamity Ganon fight in the any percent speedrun for Breath of the Wild. This fight is pretty difficult at first, and then when you get the hang of it, it becomes a lot easier. It's mainly difficult because getting hit by literally any attack will kill you and pretty much kill your run because you have to go through the Blights all over again to get back into this. But I know I've seen some people in the Discord having trouble with the fight and looking for tutorials. And I had a lot of trouble with it until I got the hang of it, so I figure I'll make this tutorial to help you guys out. Okay, so getting right into it, we start with Phase 1. So Phase 1 is pretty straightforward from a speedrunning perspective. It's not like what you would expect. There's no kind of crazy strat or glitches or exploit. You're basically just trying to get as much damage into Calamity as quickly as you can. Most of this is going to be done with arrows, using bomb arrows, and you can get some flurry rushes in too. But during this phase, Calamity has 4 main attacks that he'll do on the ground, and it's really, really important to understand the appropriate defensive options to deal with all of these attacks. Because shooting arrows at him is, just basically aiming, but the defensive actions you choose are what's going to determine whether you die and kill your run or whether you can just continue putting on the damage. So I'm going to walk you through each one of the attacks individually and how to deal with it. So first up is the horizontal slash. Now it's worth noting that all these attacks are complete RNG as far as I know. I think if you get close to him, there's one attack that you manipulate that I'll mention later, but it's very important that you react to what attack he's doing and you know what to do about it. So for the horizontal slash, you can tell that Ganon's going to pull back his giant sword and begin to swing it in a horizontal fashion. You want to move backward for this one, and right as the swing is beginning, do a backflip, and you can get a flurry rush on it, and that'll be some damage. If you don't want to deal with the flurry rush, you can just move backward, avoid the attack, and make sure you stay in between the streaks of fire that shoot out from it, because that fire can certainly damage you. If you want, you can also use the updraft from the fire that he shoots to get some bullet time crits with arrows, but it seems a little dangerous, and sometimes it's finicky getting your glider out from a little jump on top of those, so it's best to avoid that. Get the flurry rush if you want to get damage off this. If not, you can do the backflip anyway to be safe. Do it early so that you don't get the flurry rush, or just run backwards and then shoot more arrows at him. And it's really important to keep in mind that after any flurry rush, after you deal your amount of attacks that you can swing on him, he's going to do this ground pound attack, which is sort of like a counterattack, and that can kill you. You want to be very careful about that. Make sure you stop swinging on him when he starts standing back up, and you can either run away, or if you find yourself too close in a predicament, you can shield parry the attack. It won't do anything to Ganon, but it'll keep you safe from getting hit by it. So running back or walking back with your shield up is a great way to make sure you do not get hit by this attack. Alright, the next attack is the vertical slash. In this clip, he's in Phase 2, but the attack is exactly the same, so it doesn't make a difference. Phase 1 or Phase 2, the defensive option is the same. And again, you can get a flurry rush off of this. In this case, it's going to be a side hop that you'll use. You can tell Ganon's doing this attack by when he raises his sword high above him, and sort of right as he's about to swing, you want to do a side hop. You can practice the timing. I'd recommend that you side hop earlier rather than later, because obviously later you'd get hit, and earlier you'll just miss an opportunity to flurry rush, but you still have time to shoot him with some arrows when he whiffs his swing if you side hop it. So either way, you can get some damage off that. Here I do a flurry rush. The next attack is the close range attack, which he seems to initiate when you get right up close to him, but I tried intentionally manipulating this attack by running at him, and it's not too consistent because he's moving around and he moves backwards sometimes. So he'll only do this attack when he's right up next to you, though, and it's a little swing of one of these smaller guardian weapons. You can get a flurry rush off of it. Usually, in this case, I just run back and shoot more arrows at him. It doesn't have much range, so you don't have to run that far to avoid it. Either way, it's a pretty simple maneuver. You can tell he's doing it when he spawns those little guardian swords right out in front of him. And also, this is phase 2 in the clip, but it makes no difference again. For the last of Calamity's ground attacks, we have the laser. So there are two main ways to deal with the laser. The better and more risky way to deal with the laser is to shield parry it, which will deflect it at Ganon, and it'll put him in a period of knockdown where he's stunned, and you can hit him during that period. And the other way to avoid the laser, if you're not confident that you're going to parry it at a time, is to just either... I'm not sure if you can run away, but if you're just targeting him and you strafe, you'll never get hit by it. So that's a very safe way to avoid it. But you're going to need to parry it for a few things that I'm gonna get to. But to talk more about parrying it, it's very important that you understand the difference in timing based on the distance that Calamity is from you. As fast as the laser does shoot, it still takes time for it to travel from his gun to your shield. So the farther you are away from Calamity, the later you'll have to parry it, as with any attack like that. So I would definitely recommend, and for all of these you can do this, going into your casual file. You know, it's obviously going to be a bit of a different fight in your casual file because Calamity's probably going to have far less health, and you're probably far more equipped, but the timing for all of these defensive options remains the same. So you can go into your casual file, you know, get your defense maxed out so you can take as many hits as mistakes you make, and just practice the timing for the shield parry over and over again, because if you screw up the shield parry, you can easily die, and again, you know, kills your run. One thing I would recommend, though, is as with, actually, opposite of how the flurry rushes work, you want to better later than earlier with the shield parry on the laser, because if you shield parry early, you'll just get hit by the laser completely. But if you shield parry late, you will just break your shield, or your shield will take the hit. Depending on what shield it is, it might not break, and you won't parry it, but you know, you won't take damage. There is a weird phenomenon that happens, seemingly more than you'd expect, where you get the parry animation and the noise, but you don't actually reflect the laser, and you take slight damage, and I'm not quite sure why that happens, but you know, if you time it perfectly, that shouldn't happen, so just practice the timing. The laser is also a perfect opportunity, or I should say when you reflect the laser, is a perfect opportunity to grab some of the pickups that you find in the battle arena. So I'll actually put in the description, there is a very convenient image that someone created that gives you like a top-down view of the arena and where all the pickups are. But the main ones that you're going to need are to your left as you start the fight, and as you'll see in this clip, I picked them up. There are bomb arrows, Royal Shield, Royal Broadsword, and Royal Claymore. And also on the top of the arena, I believe, is where there's a Royal Halberd, and to the right there's a Royal Bow, and behind you there are some normal arrows. For the weapon route that I use, I only need the pickups that are on the left that I pick up in here. But yeah, it's your priority towards the beginning of the fight. As soon as you see the laser, you want to reflect it and grab these pickups, because the bomb arrows in particular are going to speed up phase 1 a ton. And yeah, so that's what's really important about parrying the laser for phase 1. And it's also really important for phase 2, which we will get to. Okay, so at some point, Calamity Ganon will also decide to climb up on the wall. I'm pretty sure it's RNG based, but I've heard that if you're attacking him when he's like with his back to the wall or next to a wall, that will also prompt him to do so. But it's definitely something that you're extremely likely to run into, and you need to be prepared for. The first thing you want to do is try to hit him in the head with arrows. I've heard that, I'm pretty sure any type of arrow, if you get a critical hit on his head, he'll come down immediately from the wall. But I've heard that if you just pelt him with a couple arrows in general, he'll drop off sooner, especially if they're bomb arrows. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I do know that aiming for his head is the most consistent way. And if you get him in the head, he'll drop down pretty quickly. But in case you do miss the shots, you want to be prepared for all of the actions that he can do from the wall. And he has quite a few attacks that he can do there. Now, seeing as the attacks are RNG, I didn't get a capture to give you clips of all of them, but I can explain pretty simply the appropriate defensive options. Let's hope I remember them all. So the first, I'm pretty sure they're all equally likely to happen, but the one that I seem to get the most, which also seems to be one of the most annoying, is the tornado attack. He shoots a bunch of tornadoes at you. They can block your line of sight for your arrows, which makes it hard to knock him down, and he can continue to do more attacks, which is really annoying. The tornadoes, they come at you, so you want to move backward and avoid them. They're not too hard to avoid, but if you're trying to move toward him, or like in the direction that the tornadoes are coming from, you can get hit by them and they do a lot of damage, so you don't want to do that. The next attack, the Cryonis attack, if you're playing it casually, you might have used your Cryonis rune to break the ice blocks. You don't have to worry about that. He takes a long pause during this. It's a perfect time to get a headshot, so if you see him doing that attack, just aim for his head and knock him down. That one's pretty easy. The next attack is the Thunder Blight lightning stake attack. Just run and keep moving, and the stakes will never hit you. As for the lightning itself, you have some time to shoot him in the head before he strikes the lightning on them. Or maybe they come down with lightning. I don't know. Just run away from them. Make sure you have a safe distance from them, and you, again, take that opportunity to shoot him in the head. I feel like there was one time where the lightning from one of the stakes actually blew up a bomb arrow before I shot it. I'm not sure if that can really happen, but do be wary if you're... Try not to stay near these stakes as he drops them down, of course. The next attack is the fireball that he shoots, and he shoots this fireball that moves very slowly towards you, and there are a couple things you can do about it. Probably the easiest thing... the easiest thing is probably to shield parry it, but it takes a while to get to you, so that's slow. If you shoot it with an arrow, it'll just explode, and as long as it's not close to you, that'll blow it up, and it can even, I think, knock Calamity down if he's in the blast radius. Running away from this is pretty risky because the blast radius is huge on this attack, and if you're anywhere near it when it lands, you're gonna die. Another attack he has is a spear that he throws. I found that if I just strafe and hold shield, it doesn't hit me, but weirdly sprinting away, it does hit me. You can also shield parry it, which is a bit risky, but you can reflect it and get Ganon to get knocked down earlier that way. But strafing just works for me, just targeting and strafing. And walking forward in shield seems to work too. You can shield it either way, so be safe on that. It's not worth getting hit by that attack. He also has this wind cannon attack. I haven't seen it as much myself. I would recommend holding shield and strafing as well for that attack. I'm sure you can shield parry it also, but I haven't tried. I haven't seen that one too much, unfortunately. But again, you shouldn't, if you're quick enough and precise enough on your arrows, you shouldn't have to deal with any of these attacks. And I believe the last attack he has is he shoots, I guess compared to the normal pace, a rapid fire laser out of his cannon, and you can parry that as well, or strafe to avoid it. He does shoot the normal Guardian laser from the wall, but I think that's only in Phase 2. Either way, it definitely happens in Phase 2, so I will get to that when I talk about Phase 2. The last thing you need to worry about when Ganon is on the wall is that when he does drop down from the wall, he does a pound attack similar to what he does after you get a flurry rush. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's just the same attack. So you want to make sure that you are not close to Calamity when he falls down. You can stay kind of in the middle of the arena. Should be a good way to avoid that. If you do find yourself right there, again, go for the shield parry, but try to stay away from when he's dropping down. So those are all of the attacks and the defensive options that you need to choose for Phase 1 of Calamity. But before I move on to Phase 2, I want to talk a slight bit more about how you're going to get the most damage on Calamity in Phase 1. Because you are going to be mostly shooting arrows at him. It's the fastest way to continue hitting him at a safe distance. But getting critical hits by headshots on Ganon gives you double damage for every arrow, so it's going to make it much faster, and you want to get as many as you possibly can. Also, you want to use your strongest bow, which is probably going to be the Royal Guard's bow, and bomb arrows until you don't have any more. I have also heard of people saving bomb arrows for when Ganon's on the wall, but if you're good with the headshots, you don't need to worry about that. So my personal recommendation for getting as many critical hits as possible is by using motion controls and targeting. So what motion controls allow you to do is they allow you to move the camera very quickly, and even though motion controls can be kind of finicky in general, it's a much more intuitive way to aim and to just get micro adjustments on your aiming without having to move the stick and you know, adjust it without having that kind of precision that you get from the motion controls. The reason that I recommend targeting Calamity in this situation is because it's hard to use the motion controls to move a significant amount with the camera, and Calamity is moving all the time. So by targeting, you stay within the general range of his head automatically because of the target, and then you can just make the finer adjustments from there using the motion controls. And this will get you a lot of critical hits. Alright, Phase 2. Calamity Ganon will enter Phase 2 after you deplete half of his health. Interestingly, this applies to half of whatever his health meter starts at. So if you are playing this on your casual file, you'll notice that if you have all 4 Divine Beasts on, he actually starts at half health, and then the Phase 2 doesn't begin until he's at half of that, which would be, I guess, a quarter health. But regardless, Phase 2, fortunately, is much simpler and easier than Phase 1, and it does have a trick, which is called a stun lock, that we're going to use on him in Phase 2. So what we want him to do is give us the laser, because reflecting the laser is how we're going to start the stun lock. He can still do all of his normal ground attacks in Phase 2. I'm not sure if he can do all of his wall attacks. He seems to be more prone to do the laser on the wall in this phase, whether it be the regular laser or the quick laser. And I think they did that because since you can't hurt him with arrows in this phase, it would be impossible to get him off the wall otherwise. He still does a few attacks on the wall here, but hopefully you won't have him go on the wall. If you do, just use the same defensive options and reflect the laser where you can. So as soon as you reflect the laser, that's when you're going to get a chance to start the stun lock, as I said. What you want to do is you want to walk up to, it's usually easiest on the right side because that's where you're standing near when the laser is reflected. And at first, you're not going to have time to start the stun lock when you initially put him in knockdown from the laser. So take a two-handed sword like the Royal Broadsword or your boomerang, get a few hits in. Because otherwise you're not going to have enough stamina to do this spin charge, which is what we're going to do. So then here's how the stun lock works. You want to take out a two-handed sword. In the route that I use, I have the Edge of Duality with still some durability left to it, as well as the Stone Smasher. And anyone can get, of course, the Royal Claymore as a pickup in the room. And the Royal Claymore is great. It lasts a long time. It's really great for the stun lock. And you want to start your spin attack, just holding Y. And then as soon, well, you can, the window is actually pretty generous. There's a visual cue for when you want to release the spin charge, and the cue I use is in between when, at the end, when Ganon starts to get up and regenerate his shield, he dips down with his body before rising up to release his shield, and anytime in between when he dips down and like when he gets all the way back up, you can release it, and that'll work for the stun lock. And if you do it correctly, Calamity will just fall back down and knock down once again, and you can recharge the spin and repeat this until he's dead. Laser, please. Use this a couple hits, and then we're going to use this. So this frame here shows a good example of the visual cue I look for. This is when Ganon is lowering his body before he raises up to regenerate his shield. And this is a good window for the earliest time that you can release the spin charge. To properly manage your stamina, you'll have to wait a little bit after ending your first spin charge to regenerate your stamina before starting the next charge. I use this scissor-like guardian hand from Calamity falling to the ground as the visual cue for when to start my next spin charge to make sure I have enough stamina. You can do it a little sooner in my experience. You can do it in between when his first hand and the scissor hand fall, or maybe even when the first hand falls, but to be safe, you can wait until the scissor hand falls and then start your next spin. Also, you do want to try and find a position where you can get as many hits per spin as you can, because you can collide with multiple different parts of his limbs and his body to get more hits each time you spin. It's very important to keep in mind the durability of your weapons. If you see that one of the weapons you're using is damaged, be sure to switch to another weapon before starting another spin cycle using the damaged weapon. Use this. And that's it. Rinse and repeat until Calamity is gone. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial.